have a guest with me, and if you want to know what it's like to live with a person with a mental illness, keep watching. So today I have my husband Norman with me. Say hey, Norman.
Hello, everybody.
So pretty much I'm going to just ask him some questions that I didn't give him beforehand of what it's like living with me and my mental illness. So we're pretty much just going to jump right into it. So the first question I have for you is, what was your perception of mental illness before meeting me?
Excuse me. My perception of mental illness prior to meeting you was just, the television aspect of it, what we see on TV, what is perceived to be crazy or mentally ill or deranged, the perception that we are given, and we oftentimes just, equate it with somebody who is delirious or just does crazy things or suicidal or perhaps even psychotic. We always associate those things with, horror movies like the Psychopath and whatnot, but never a true definition that has a sickness behind it. So that was my perception of it prior to.
Okay. And would you have thought that a person that does have any type of mental illness look like me or appear to be okay like me?
No, because what society tells us and what we're taught or what we're force fed is that, a crazy person or a person with a mental illness is disheveled looking. They may have a crazy appearance. They have the weird or glassy eyes, or they, may even just be doing things repetitively, like, scratching or hitting their head on the wall, or just doing stuff to be destructive to themselves, but not necessarily a normal looking person that you would just encounter in passing. You would never, we are taught that most people who appear to be okay are okay, but that's certainly not the case.
So did you actually think, were you along with that type of thinking? Did you kind of go along with that? Did you also feel like if a person has bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or depression or whatever, that they have a certain look, like you will be able to pick them out in a crowd?
Yes, because, I can't speak for everyone, but more than likely the general consensus is most people are not even well versed enough to know what bipolar is, and most people associate being crazy with schizophrenia, which is multiple personalities and acting out and just speaking out of your normal character, right, or doing things that's just not normal. Most people that don't really know what bipolar depression is, they associate schizophrenia with being crazy or mentally disturbed or what have you. So yes, to a degree, I had that definition in my head, but not totally. I've seen some things prior to. So.
Okay. What has been your experience with me and the things that I pretty much go through daily? Yeah, you can be honest.
It can be a bit of a roller coaster ride, having to, go through my own day and have my own struggles, with just a normal day, and then to have to come home and not know what I'm faced with, be it, the ups, whether it's a happy day and the lows where you come home and you just don't know what's going on. It's like, I know I didn't do anything, so why is she feeling like this? What happened? Well, nothing happened. She's just detached, doesn't want to be bothered. There have been times where, the roller coaster ride aspect of it, I'll be on the phone prior to getting home, and I'll be on the phone and we'll be having a conversation and everything will be laughs and giggles and everything is okay, and I can literally come home 30 minutes later and it'll be like a whole nother person is here.
And I can honestly say that when we had those instances, which there were quite a few, I feel horrible every time. And as I tried to explain to him that most times I didn't even understand why I would go from being, like he said, on the phone, extremely happy, talkative, laughing, joking, and as soon as he walks in the door, it's like night and day.
Yeah, it's like a switch. It's truly like a switch. It's truly like another person. It's like, was I not just on the phone with you, laughing and joking, and now I come in and it's like, solace, it's very odd, and it gets to be a bit much when you experience it, semi-regularly, but you have to find ways to combat it. You have to find ways to help, the person who's going through it and not be a burden. It definitely calls for you to rely on, patience as well as, your faith. You can't do it without, your faith. You can't do it without patience. You have to have an understanding of what it is that you're in the middle of or what you're dealing with. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself trying to do what they're doing, and that's detach. And if two people are trying to detach, it doesn't help the person who really has the illness. So, it takes a bit of work. The person that's nearest or the people that are nearest, have to be a little educated as well.
So, did you think at any point that I was using mental illness as an excuse?
Early on, it's easy to feel that way. It's easy to feel as though it could be used as an excuse for many things. But, if you can remove yourself from, and if you can remove your needs from it, your agenda per se, and just understand and just sit back and observe what's going on, you'll quickly realize that it's not an act, and it's not, something that's being used as a weapon, for lack of a better word, or an item for leverage to gain whatever it is that, you may be trying to get. It's not, it's far too exhausting, for lack of a better word, to do all of that just to get your way.
So do you think having a mental illness or any type of disorder is something that you can easily turn off and on? Or how about this? Did you think that it was easy to turn it off and on prior to meeting me?
I never had a perception of whether or not it was difficult to turn on or off. For me, I think that, I thought mental illness was just that. It was no on or off. It was just, for lack of a better word, uncontrollable. Like a person who had mental issues was just okay, and then all of a sudden it was just like click, they weren't okay. So, I don't look at it as a way of, or look at it by way of turn it on and turn it off. I never have looked at it that way.
So with that explanation of before meeting me, you actually perceived a mental illness to be somebody doing okay, then all of a sudden they're completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So once you got into a relationship with me and that started to happen, did that ever pop up in your mind that will, that is what was going on? Or what did you think when I would go through these episodes of being extremely sad or angry or withdrawn?
For me, I equated it to situations and circumstances dealing with everyday life, be it finances, accomplished or, have achieved as many things as you might have wanted to do at that point in your life, just being disappointed in yourself, being super critical of yourself. And I think that plays a part in the mental illness, but I only associated that with it initially until I started seeing it become repetitious, and it became far and far more frequent. And, that's when I really started to pay attention and listen to how you felt about it, and also just do some reading for myself as to, the how and the why.
So you read some stuff about it?
I've read a few things after hearing you express your concerns about what you thought you may have had, or even just expressing that, you felt that way, and most people just discount it and never ever go get checked or talk to anyone. They just, especially in our community where we just feel like you're supposed to pray through everything. And that's a good approach to it, but some things require, a little more work outside of prayer.
Right. Okay. So what are some things, and be honest, as honest as possible.
Damn, I was going to wake up and tell a few lies today, but go ahead.
So what are some things that truly bother you, or you have great concerns about with me and in our marriage when it comes to mental health?
Some of my biggest fears, as with mental illness as it pertains to you, is that I fear that you'll be withdrawn for so much of our children's lives that you'll live to regret it. I feel like, although you're present here physically, I feel like mentally sometimes you're absent because of you being so consumed or enthralled with, your mental situation. I feel like we miss out sometimes on, just connecting because of the fact that you're always on that roller coaster. And, I think it's therapeutic for you to talk about it. And I would encourage anybody that's a spouse or significant other to not be pushy as far as, always just leaning and asking, what's wrong? What can I do? Because sometimes that contributes to it.
I get agitated.
The agitation, the frustration, and before you know it, the mental illness or the episode, whatever you may want to label it, is already there. And then you add to it the fact that you've caused or created a level of aggravation. And instead of her just going through her mental issue, now we're both aggravated. So now you have the mental issue, and then you have the couple's anger, and before you know it, nobody's talking, nobody's doing anything, and it's just chaotic. So to put more emphasis on the answer to my question, I just wish that it would become just a little bit easier to communicate and to release it. And I know that's the biggest challenge too. It's not as simple as, oh, let me just let it go. But for somebody who doesn't deal with that, like myself, it gets frustrating for me because I feel like, whatever is bothering me, at some point, I'm going to just be like, you know what? I can't fix it all. I'm not going to try to fix it all. I can only deal with what's in front of me. Versus yourself or anybody with a mental illness, they tend to, and I don't think it's intentional, but they tend to internalize a lot of things. They hold on to a lot of things, and everything hovers over like a cloud. Things that, a normal person, not to say that I'm normal and she's abnormal, but in this situation, I just don't hold on to everything. And that's part of the illness for you or for her. She holds on to everything, and sometimes it's just difficult for her to let it go, whether it be the smallest things or the largest things.
I do hold on or internalize. Mm-hmm. And in return, my mind races. It never stops. And it kind of just builds. And eventually I just blow up. And that has been our experience. And I'm speaking about this, and we're doing this question and answer because I really think it helps me to release this, for us to have dialogue. It creates a level of intimacy for us to have this dialogue together. Even if it is the kids are still asleep in the back, and at any moment our 2-year-old could pop in here. But we're still having dialogue about it and trying to fix the situation, trying to help me to get through the mental barriers so that I won't miss out on anything in my kids' life as well as in our marriage. One thing is, counseling, I feel, is very important. Having a therapist, a psychiatrist, or a psychologist is extremely important. And for me, excuse me, in the past, I wasn't able to go because of the fact that I couldn't afford it. We didn't have the insurance. We were paying for insurance out of our pockets, or we didn't have insurance at all. So, and I've never found any place that was truly just free for me to go to. And if it was free, it took forever for me to actually be seen.
Right.
So by that time, I'm on the emotional roller coaster, and by the time I actually get an appointment, it's like, oh, well, I don't need it now.
Unfortunately, with mental illness and insurance and how they need to coexist, it's truly a matter of you get what you pay for. And when you don't have insurance, in essence, you're not paying for anything. So when you go and expect a level of service, you actually get nothing. You know, you'll get somebody there and it's pretty much a cookie cutter blueprint. They're gonna lay out a template and they're gonna check off all the boxes. We asked her this, we asked them that, we checked their name, we made sure they weren't having any psychotic fits. They're not about to run off and kill nobody, you know, and then, you know, they pat you on the back, suggest a couple of things and send you on your way. No real, you know, care goes into free counseling.
You want to make sure, let's be clear, we're not saying that this is for every free situation. Just the ones that we've encountered, we've experienced,
right,
that we didn't get the level of care that if I had insurance, I would get.
Right. I'm sure that's a completely, you probably can do a whole nother video on insurance, whether it be health or mental, you know,
right.
Just
right.
Let's not right now.
All right. So do you feel it's important for family members living with a person that has a mental illness to also go to therapy?
It hasn't been my experience because we haven't done it thus far, but I do think that it would behoove or benefit us all. So everybody in the household, even small children, can kind of know what they're dealing with. Because kids, mostly kids, if it's not right in front of them, if it's not like a Mack truck about to run them over, kids are like, okay, she's just having a bad day.
Yeah.
So kids definitely need to go, but more than, you know, also the adults, because to hear it is one thing, to see it is another, but to actually talk with someone who's a professional, who, you know, is going to counsel you all and put you in the arena so you can know how to better combat it and deal with it, because there may be some things that you can do, or myself in this matter, to help her along the way.
So I do feel that when you have other people around you, whether it's friends, your children, your spouse, everybody needs counseling. everybody should go and seek therapy, because it's just a subject, and it's one of those things that you can't see. It's only within that person. So it's hard for other people to understand, people that's not going through it, to understand what you're going through. So 1, for awareness, 2, for clarity. I think that everybody needs to go. And then after that, if that person is feeling something, like my husband stated, he was confused, about 1 minute, I'm extremely happy, laughing and talking. And then the next minute when he gets here, it's like somebody else is in place. So those things also should be discussed. So it's several reasons why people living with a person that has a mental illness should seek therapy. So we recommend that. Okay. Medication. I spoke real briefly in my last video about being on medication, getting off of it, and kind of doing that whole cycle. With me, as I stated in my last video, if you didn't see it, when I take antipsychotics or antidepressants or medication for anxiety, most of them make me extremely sick. Or I'm drowsy, or I'm asleep. So for me, it hasn't been beneficial. And also I'm a pharmacist. So I know how the drugs actually work and how they're supposed to act with your body. For me, I said in my last video that I think, self-diagnosis, that I'm a slow metabolizer, because any medication that I take, I get the side effects. And most times that means that the medicine is lingering in your body for an extended period of time. So that means you're metabolizing or breaking down the medications very slowly. And so for me, I feel like that's what's going on. So I get the side effects of all of these medications, which makes me not want to take them. So I'll start and I'll stop. This last time, it's been about maybe right at about 6 weeks now that I started medication, and it's been about 2 weeks that I've stopped taking it because I started to feel sick. I was feeling okay. I was feeling sick at first, then I started feeling okay, then I started feeling sick again. So for you, do you see a difference when I'm on the medication versus when I'm off it?
There have been differences with various medications. I'm certainly no pharmacist or doctor, so I couldn't pronounce or remember half of the stuff that that she has attempted to take. But there have been some pros and cons. Unfortunately, like she said, it seems as though if there are 12 side effects to a drug, she's going to experience at least 10 of them. I'm sure that's not everybody's experience. Every person is different, but that's been my experience with her as far as, side effects in the drugs. And as far as them benefiting or helping, there have been a few instances where, the drug will help her to, not be so agitated or aggressive in reaction to like small or minute things. It could be something as simple as, trying to make a decision as far as what to eat for dinner, or as something even small as turning a light off or leaving a light on in a room. It could go from, Cinderella to Medusa inside of 3 seconds. So the medications have shown ups and downs, but I'm sure, like I said, that's not everybody's plight. And you add in the fact, for all of you people out there that's watching, or a medical professional, when you have a person that's a pharmacist that, like she said, she's self-diagnosis, I'm sure somebody out there can relate to being with a doctor or a pharmacist or a nurse, they always overthink things when it comes to self-diagnosing. They can tell you everything to do with yourself, but never what to do with them.
That's true.
So, sometimes that can be a bit much. It's like the doctor said, the doctor said for you to do A, B, and C, not A, R, J, K, L, B. He said A, B, and C. But in her defense, I've seen these medications make it to where she was basically a zombie, sleep all day long. I've seen her not be able to eat. I've seen her, almost be to a point where, she was physically debilitated, where she couldn't walk properly or everything ate. I've seen the whole range, and it's not pretty. So, I think, she probably needs to, see someone and, but again, I'm no professional. I'm just giving my perspective off of my observation and having to be here and, experience it more times than not.
And as I stated in my last video, if you're on medication, take your medication. Don't stop the medication abruptly without speaking to a physician. A lot of the antidepressants, antipsychotics, if you stop them, you're going to get the opposite effect. So just make sure that you don't do that. I know I'm not doing the right thing. Again, as he stated.
There's no Spike Lee in this. She is not doing the right thing.
So take your meds. Don't stop unless you actually have spoken to your physician first. For me, like I said, all of the things that he was explaining, I get all kinds of side effects. I even had a side effect where I would yawn, and it was uncontrollable.
All day long?
I would yawn all day long, to the point that I had to look this up for this drug just to see. It's like, is this a side effect of this drug? Yeah, only 1% of patients that take that medication gets that side effect. Who got it? Me. So that's why I've been struggling with it. But I can honestly say that this last time that I started taking 2 different meds, I felt a lot less agitated and on edge, but I was sick. So it's like if I could just remove the sickness part, I would stay on that medication forever. So maybe I'm thinking about just doing half of that dose once I speak to a physician and see how that works for me, because I find myself on the emotional roller coaster. I find myself spiraling as I did the other day when I'm not on it. Because again, the build up, everything that I'm internalizing, it eventually builds up, and then I find myself blowing up and not truly understanding why until I start pulling stuff out. So, one more question. How has your opinion changed of mental illness, mental disorders, and just overall, how has your opinion changed?
It has changed mostly in a point of, I think more people take it for granted. I think more people experience it than they realize, and they don't even know it. And, it needs to be addressed. As soon as you think it's an issue, it needs to be addressed. And whether that be in counseling, the stigma or the stereotype that you're automatically going to be on this myriad of drugs and medications and you'll never be the same. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be, for some people, it could be just as simple as just getting some counseling and talking to someone. It may be a combination of both, but the key to it all is you have to address it with a professional. You can't just hope that everything's going to be all right. You can't just, pray it away, because, you know, if you know anything about God, you know, whatever religion, faith without works, and you fill in the blanks.
Yes,
But,
ma'am.
you know, it definitely has to be addressed. So my opinion has only changed in the fact that, you know, we need to stop relaxing. Everyone, if you see someone who has just any symptom or any inkling of some type of mental disorder, as insulting as it may come across sometimes, because that's another thing. We oftentimes take it as an insult or a jab, or we taking it as tearing a person down. We can't do that. You have to be able to, you know, verbalize to a person that, hey, I'm concerned, and I think you need to talk to somebody, or we can go and talk to somebody. But, you know, that's the way my opinion has changed. I think people need to stop taking it for granted that it's just going to be all right, and, you know, that crazy is just, you know, people that just click and do crazy things. It's not that. You know, the person sitting next to you with a smile on their face and, you know, has all of their things and all of their faculties together about them may actually be dealing with a mental disorder.
A whole lot.
You know, so that's the only way that I think that that's the biggest view for me as far as how I've changed my outlook on it.
Okay. Well, thank you, husband, for answering these questions for me. Again, like I said, I really thought that it brings about dialogue, healthy dialogue for us and for you guys. Make sure you share this video. Leave comments below. I read all of the comments, so I do want to see what you guys think, what you have experienced, what your family members are experiencing with you if you do have a mental disorder, or if your family member has a mental disorder. Write those and leave those comments below. Also, don't forget to like and share these videos and hit the notification bell so you'll know the next time I upload. I changed my upload days on the last video. I mentioned it. I changed to now every other Friday and Sunday at 8:00 p.m. It's when I'll be uploading, because that suits me best with my work schedule. So make sure you guys tune in to the next video. And until next time, bye.